I recently flew on All Nippon Airways premium economy cabin from the United States to Thailand in both their 787 and their 777-300ER. And I can tell you that not all of ANA's premium economies are exactly the same. So in this video, we're gonna put the 787 against the 777-300ER in a battle. So we're gonna take a quick overview of these flights first so we can see that the comparison is slightly imbalanced, just to make sure that we're making it a fair fight. So the longer flight was the 777-300ER that I took, and that went from Chicago to Tokyo, which is the distance of about 6,300 miles, and that took roughly 13.5 hours. This was an overnight flight, meaning I got the full sleeping experience during this flight. On still a relatively short flight, but still a long one, this one went from Tokyo to Bangkok. That's roughly 2,850 miles, and it took roughly 6 to 6.5 hours. And this one was not an overnight flight, but I did get a little bit of rest on it, so we need to make a comparison based on those. Here's what we're going to compare. First, we're going to look at the staff on each of the flights, and then we're going to look at the cabin layout and see the similarities and the differences. Then we're going to look at the amenities that are provided on each flight. And after that, we'll take a look at the entertainment systems that they have, and that's going to include both the screen and the headset that they offer us. And then we're going to look at the seats themselves, so we're going to explore their level of comfort, their recline, how much foot room they have, what kind of outlets and storage they have as well, and we'll take a look at the tray tables. And then we'll also look at what the bathrooms look like in these premium economy cabins. We'll also look at the food that we get, as well as the drinks that we get, and that will also include the snacks that we can have, not just the meals that we were able to select from. And then most importantly, we're going to discuss the actual sleep quality that we got on each of the flights and how that might affect you and how they compare against each other. Now, when it comes to the staff on each flight, it should come as no surprise that it was pretty much equivalent. I mean, it's the same company, they're trained by the same people. I'm sure those staff probably even work on both of the planes, the 777 and the 787. So their kindness, their attentiveness, their politeness, and their professionalism was all roughly equivalent and appreciated. So now let's take a look at the cabin layout in each of these planes. So on the 777, you'll see that we have a 2-4-2 seat arrangement, and there are only 3 rows, so it's not a very congested cabin. And you can see this does come with the Pokemon and Pikachu theme to it, and you can see that we do have some amenities to check out as well later. Now let's compare that to the 787, which has a slightly different layout. Now in the 787, we have a 2-3-2 seat arrangement. We were sitting in the back on one of the sides here, but you can see again, there's just 3 rows, so it's very, very convenient. Not a lot of people, super quiet and private in this layout right here. So let's take a look at the amenities on each of the flights. And as you can see, we're gonna get a lot of the things you might expect. For example, we get a pillow, a nice blanket to go with that. We get some slippers, and we also get some over-the-ear headphones that were actually really comfortable. It was nice because they didn't press down on my big floppy ears, and my daughter liked them too, as you can see. And then we also got toothbrushes, there were eye masks and things like that available as well. And then on the 787, you can see we're gonna get a lot of the same stuff. So let's take a look at the pillow that we got there, the blanket, again, they look exactly the same. The headphones were a little bit different, so that was the one thing. These are on-the-ear headphones, not quite as good, but we still did get our slippers. Those were nice and comfortable and good for the plane. And then again, the toothbrush, the eye masks, and things like that were all available once again. Now let's take a look at the entertainment systems on each of the airplanes. And on the 777-300ER, we had a 10.6-inch screen. You can see that it was pretty good clarity and it had a lot of give to it, so you could move it in and out depending on if the person in front of you was leaning back. We did have this controller for it as well. Wasn't that useful though, because there were no video games, so why even have that? There was lots of movies, videos, audio, ebooks, news, whatever you wanted to listen to. There was a huge collection of stuff. I think I ended up going over to the HBO Max section, and then I watched The Last of Us. Now you can switch the brightness really easily on this, and that worked really well. Same thing with the volume. It was super easy to control. There was a kids mode that I activated on my child's side. You could even send messages back and forth between the seats if you wanted to. You could also do some duty-free shopping. I wasn't much into that, but I was into this map right here. I always like following along when we're flying. Now on the 787, we had the same size screen, and you can see right here that it pretty much looks exactly the same. The controller was a little bit bigger, however, the functions and features were basically the same, and there was still no video games. Okay, now we're gonna take a look at the seats themselves and discuss all the different features of them. So on the 777, you can see that we have a pitch of 38 inches, a width of 19.3 inches. We have a footrest, a leg rest, and it's quite comfortable. So let's take a closer look. Here you can see my daughter getting comfortable in it. Plenty of room for her. You can see the little Pokemon theme with the headrest right here. We have a glimpse of the lamp, some of the amenities, the leg rest down there, which is nice and full. Here's the footrest right here. I didn't find it super comfortable. I'm 6'1". I prefer to just kick up the legs with this button right here. And that I actually found really, really comfortable even for sleeping. I think it looks less comfortable than it actually is. I was super comfy. I loved it. And here is the tray right here. That's right in the armrest in between us. We both have one of those. Now the headrest does have the foldable pieces on it, and it can slide up and down as well for comfort. Here is a closer look at the little lamp. I think they're a little awkward, but that's just my opinion. You can see at 6'1", I have a ton of leg room right here, even to stretch out all the way. That felt really good. However, there is this bar right here in my seat that kind of gets in the way of the feet. Not too bad, but still kind of annoying. Here are the outlets, USB and some standard international outlets. More storage in the middle. My daughter shoved her shirt in there. That's totally fine. And then we do have reading lights up here, but no access to AC control, unfortunately. So now let's take a look at the seats on the 787. Now, honestly, they are pretty much the same with a few differences. They have the headrest that goes up and down with the wings on it as well. It has the awkward light that goes over your shoulder like that. It has plenty of leg room once more. Again, I'm 6'1", there's a ton of room right there. There's the footrest. Again, not super comfortable for me, but maybe some people might like it. I just kick it up, keep it up. There's storage right here in these mesh pockets. There's plugs down here. It's got the tray tables inside like this, and those are some nice size tray tables, as you can see. It folds out into two separate pieces and slides around. You can fold it in half as well and have a cup holder, and they're pretty easy to put back as well. And there is this tiny little cup holder right here that's kind of convenient and really easy to use. But when I wanted to kick the legs up again, the buttons were in the armrest, and there was still that thing down in the way of the feet, just like in the first plane. My daughter's seats never had them, so she was kind of lucky. Now let's move on to talk about the food and the drinks that were available on each flight. And on the first flight, we had dinner and breakfast plus snacks, and there were free food and drinks available. They started by giving us a choice of a drink and a bag of little snacks. Those were like little crackers and stuff. My daughter got an orange juice, I got an Asahi. Now you can see that the tray tables are a little different on the 777. You can see it's just one panel that comes out instead of a folding panel. That's the one major difference. There's still plenty of room, as you can see, and there's no small cup holder like the last one had. I did get a look at the food right here, and honestly, it looks like regular economy food, but we got a choice here. We had a choice between grilled chicken or a beef and pork hamburger steak, so we went with one of each. So my daughter went with the chicken meal, and you can see that comes with a lot of sides. There's a salad, two small salads actually. The rice in the chicken looks pretty good. That's also got some carrots and some green beans in it. You can see here that we both got the green salads. I also got some seaweed and some sauces and stuff. That would be for the bok choy right there. And you can see here is the main dish that I got. That was the beef and hamburger steak one. You can see that that comes with noodle sauce and some Italian dressing as well. And that was all pretty good. That came with another drink too, and I think it had a really nice touch that it came with metal silverware, one step up. Now here's the green salad. That was actually pretty refreshing and delicious. I enjoyed that quite a bit. Here's the bok choy and some mushrooms. I had struggled grabbing that with the fork, obviously. But I did get it, and it was yummy. And at the end, we had some vanilla Haagen-Dazs. And then we ended up getting these little chocolate biscuits. And honestly, they weren't that good. They looked like dog treats, and they didn't taste very good either. So my daughter was still hungry before going to bed, so she got herself some cup noodles. These were free, and she really enjoyed those. I think they looked pretty good, and it was nice hot food for her that helped her get to sleep. And so I woke up with like 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 45 minutes to go, and breakfast was already on the table, and I was ready to eat again. So a little bit more food here to check out. It was like potato and ham and tomato again. That was pretty good and refreshing. And then we got like this egg and meat and broccoli mixture right here. Again, I found it hearty. We also got this muffin here. Not a personal fan of muffins inside bags. And then my daughter got her own little noodle and chicken with green beans and vegetables over here. Now on the 787, we just had one meal, but we still had access to the snacks and the free food and drinks. Now at first they gave us a snack and a muffin and water and an orange juice. I think my daughter really liked the muffin. She was going to town on that, but eventually she wanted some more noodles. So she did get some more of those on this flight because she was still hungry. And then eventually our real meals came, and they looked pretty similar because they had the salad and stuff, but just a little slice of apple right here, not quite as hearty. The salad wasn't quite as nice as the last one, but this was really good. I liked that ham and potato or whatever that was with it, but that was tasty. Here was the main dish right here that I was eating. It was some beef, I think, and noodles with some greens. Again, here's what my daughter got. Same thing as me, except for some noodles and a little bit of chicken, I believe. Okay, now let's move on to talk about the bathrooms in each of them. Now on the 777, they were large and clean. Let's take a look. My daughter and I both went in to brush our teeth, and as you can see here, with two of us standing up in the bathroom, there was still a lot of room, even room for another third or fourth person if anyone wants to join us. Now in the 787, it was a bit smaller, but still very clean. Let's take a look. As you can see here, we're in this bathroom, and with the two of us in here, there's not much more room left for another person. Get out of here. Now, most importantly, let's talk about the sleep quality on each of the planes because that's obviously super important. Now on the 777, when we were flying almost 14 hours, I personally slept for a full 5 hours, and it felt really, really good, especially compared to an economy class seat where I'm basically not gonna sleep at all. I'm gonna sleep maybe like 30-minute to 1 hour spurts and get woken up again, so it'd be so uncomfortable. Slept really well in premium economy. Now, I've flown business class on flights this long too when they were laid down totally flat, and I could get up to 8 hours there, so it wasn't quite as good, but it was still well worth it, I think. And you can see my daughter when she's just totally passed out. You can see how comfortable she is. Now she actually has her legs kind of curled up a little bit. She just does that when she sleeps. That's not how they actually are according to the seat. She could stretch out much more if she wanted to. Overall, we were both very happy with our sleeping on that flight. Now let's take a look at the sleeping on the 787. And again, remember, we didn't have such a long flight on that plane. It wasn't 14 hours, but it was still 6.5 hours, so we still needed some rest. Let's take a look. Here you can see how the leg rest works. It's really comfortable, actually. Even though that thing kind of gets in the way of my foot, the way the legs are raised up is really comfortable. You can see how we lean back here too. It's kind of like sleeping in a lazy boy. Really comfortable overall. You can see her getting well rested once again. Okay, so now that we've seen everything, let's discuss who's winning in each category, and I'll give you my final thoughts about each flight. See, so as I already mentioned, the staff on each flight is both trained by All Nippon Airways, and I very much suspect that the flight crew on the 777 have also been on the 787 and vice versa, so I'm sure the professionalism, the skill, and the attentiveness are going to be equivalent across the board, and I really liked it. You know, it's those Japanese airlines really know how to take care of the customer, and I appreciate that. So in terms of staff, this one is a tie. Now in terms of the cabin layout, the 787 has the 232 layout, which is a little bit more quiet than the 242 layout in the 777. Now obviously I think the difference is kind of negligible because there's just a few people per cabin, and each of the cabins are really small and really private, so they're both really quiet, but the 787 does take the edge slightly with the 232 layout. Winner goes to the 787 for cabin layout. Now in terms of amenities, they were again basically the same. The pillow, the slippers, the blankets were all pretty much equivalent. However, in the 777-300ER, the headset was slightly better than the headset in the 787. That's because in the 787, they were on the ear headphones, so they would push down on your ears like this, whereas the 777-300ER had the over-the-ear headphones that would go like this. Now, that was likely due to the route that we took. Since we were going over the Pacific Ocean and it was twice as long of a flight on the 777, that's probably why we got the larger headsets for that one. But, however, that does mean that in terms of the amenities, the 777 wins. Now, as for the entertainment sets on each of the flights, they were pretty much identical, with, again, the controller being just slightly larger in the 787. It didn't really make much of a difference, so in this category, it's a clean tie. Now, in terms of the bathrooms, the bathroom on the 787 was not cramped by any means. However, the bathroom on the 777-300ER was much larger, maybe 3 times as large, it felt like. There was so much room in that one, so it was the clear winner in this case. Now, in terms of food, we did get more food on the 777-300ER, but that's because it was a twice as long flight. So I can't really say that that is necessarily better. In terms of quality, I would say it was pretty much equivalent. I mean, you had a choice of 1 or 2 meals that you could pick from. You could always get the free noodles. There was always free drinks available. There was always snacks available and things like that. So I would say in terms of the food, it's equivalent and it's a tie. Now, in terms of the actual seats that they had on each of the flights, the pitch was the same, the seat width was the same. I would say the comfort was the same as well. Now, there were a few differences, however. For example, the tray tables were a little bit different. I preferred the tray table on the 777-300ER because it was just one big piece and it felt a little bigger. However, I did like that little extra cup holder that you could get on the 787. Now, the one big upgrade that I felt that the 787 had that the 777-300ER didn't have was just a slightly upgraded fabric, and I don't know if I'm correct in terms of which one has actually been upgraded or not, but it looks more upgraded, and I think it just has a better look and a better feel to it. So the winner for me in terms of the seats is, by that metric, the 787. So with all the ties and the 777 winning some and the 787 winning others, it actually comes to an even tie. It's basically the same experience. They're both great flights. I really liked it. So let me just give you my final thoughts on when I think you should actually use these premium economy seats and when you should maybe avoid them. So first things first, you should use them if you can afford them. So when I booked these flights, the regular economy seats were roughly $650 to $700 to get us all the way from Michigan to Bangkok in Thailand. And so the premium economy flights were about 40% higher than that. They were around $1,000 a piece. So if you have the extra money and you can afford it, that's one reason you maybe should take these seats. The second big reason is if you really want to get sleep on a long overnight flight. So I've been on lots of long overnight flights from USA to Asia over the Pacific Ocean, and I can tell you that in economy seats, it's really, really difficult to sleep because you're basically just sitting upright. You don't get a lot of lean back. You don't have a lot of space. And so for me, I can sleep maybe a half hour at a time to an hour at a time. It just feels like little broken up naps, not really good sleep. However, on the premium economy flights, when we flew 13 and a half hours overnight, I got pretty good sleep. I got a solid 5 hours of sleep. I woke up feeling pretty refreshed. My food was right there ready to go. For me, that was pretty good. And I felt well rested when I got off the plane. And that was, for me, what was most important. And it made it worth that extra few $100s. Now, another reason you might want to take these premium economy flights is because the lounges are included in your layovers. So if you're taking premium economy on all Nippon Airways, you do get lounge access, which is really nice. It means you can take a shower. It means you can rest. It means you can get a ton of free food and free drinks in between your flights in a comfortable place. And one nice thing about those lounges too is if you have kids like me, they even have a little kids room available. And of course, a working space as well, if that's what you want to get into. Okay, now lastly, if you are considering taking a business class flight, I would say it might be worth it if you're taking a long overnight flight and you know for sure you want to sleep at least 8 hours. Now, when I was looking at the prices of these flights, the premium economy was about $1,000. The business class was about $2,000 to $2,500. And so that's a big jump up for just an extra few hours of sleep. I think the price difference from the economy going up to the premium economy, going from 30 minutes to an hour of sleep to 5 hours of sleep is a huge difference. Definitely it's a huge difference in how much sleep you get, but it's also a great value exchange as compared to going into the business class flights where you might get a little bit more sleep, but you're also going to pay at least 2 times as much, maybe 150% more than what you would pay in the premium economy. However, of course, you're going to get better food and service and stuff like that. So it's really up to your own decision there. If you want to see more about our flights overseas going from Michigan to Bangkok, just click on this video up here and make sure you subscribe to see more videos over here.